Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Marty Smith podcast. I cannot believe it is almost February. It is February of 2022. We've made our way through the month of January. We have had a college football playoff national champion crowned. We are on the precipice of having a Super Bowl champion crowned after last weekend's awesome conference championship games. As always, I'm Marty Smith. Alongside me is the great Wes Blankenship. And how was your week, man? What'd you do?
Well, I watched those playoff games, and after the playoff action the week before, we didn't think it could be topped. But man, I mean, this has been a really incredible run leading up to this Super Bowl, man.
It's been an incredible run, and we'll get into it because there's a couple of guys playing quarterback who are very special people, and you being the aficionado and expert on all things Georgia Bulldogs, you can get into what this really means for Matt Stafford and for his family. He was in Detroit for years and never had the opportunity to really make any kind of stronghold on a potential run to a playoff run and a Super Bowl. He gets traded 1 year ago out to Los Angeles, and everybody in the Rams organization felt like his skill set was that piece that they needed. Then they continued to add pieces after they added him. Here comes Von Miller. Here comes OBJ. They already had Cooper Kupp, who just exploded this year onto the national scene with a record-breaking year. And now here they are with my doppelganger, Sean McVay, trying to win a Super Bowl championship. It's just a remarkable story. And then on the other side is Joe Burrow. He's unreal, dude. What an unbelievable story. I mean, it's just an unbelievable story what he's done there. And, it's his second season in the NFL, but he got hurt last year. So for all intents and purposes, it's kind of his first run. And he's a magician. And he just has a moxie and a self-confidence that everybody in that organization has fed off of in a overwhelming, indescribable way. And he just got the juice, man. Burrow did. I mean, they were down 21-3. They were down 18 points on the road in this legendarily, we make up words on the Marty Smith podcast.
We need our own dictionary.
Rowdy environment at Arrowhead Stadium. And so all he did was put him on his back and carry him, and the defense for the Bengals was fabulous. I love the word flummoxed. They definitely had Patrick Mahomes flummoxed in the second half, but it's just been an amazing run. But for both of those teams and both of those organizations, and certainly both those quarterbacks. And we talk all the time about the Southeastern Conference being the best conference in college football, and here you have two SEC quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, both of whom with an opportunity to lead their team to a world championship. It's something else.
I tweeted last night that the legendary image of Nate Evans of UCF staring down at Joe Burrow in that Fiesta Bowl, I tweeted, the legend grows, because ever since that photo, Joe Burrow has gone to the moon. And now he's one win away from being, I think they said on the CBS broadcast last night, Joe Namath, there's another Joe, Montana, are the only two quarterbacks to win national championships and Super Bowls. So if you're, taking prop bets on that, you gotta ride with Joe Burrow, right?
Don't bet against Joe football. I can't. I knew it a long time ago, and the reason that I felt so confident about how he would do in the NFL, despite the fact that he got drafted by the Bengals number 1 overall, look, I mean, turnarounds like this just don't happen that often. I mean, it's hard to go. I don't know. Travis can text me on this. He's behind the board. I think there's only been a couple teams ever that went from as bad as they were to the Super Bowl, and I know the Carolina Panthers are one of them. Here's the stat. The Bengals become the third team to reach the Super Bowl 2 years after having the NFL's worst record. Third team ever to reach the Super Bowl 2 years after having the NFL's worst record, and I'm pretty sure the Panthers are one of those. Here's the thing about Joe. So I got to know him pretty well when he was at LSU. I went down in the fall of 2018. I had met Joe when he was at Ohio State. I met Joe standing on the sideline of an Ohio State spring game when he was sitting there holding his shoulder pads like this and getting absolutely zero run. And we just started shooting a breeze. And then when he transferred to LSU, I felt like I knew what that quarterback battle was. I knew what that Dwayne Haskins, Joe Burrow quarterback battle was at Ohio State. Ohio State ultimately chooses Dwayne Haskins as their starting quarterback, which was not the wrong decision, by the way. Haskins had 50-something touchdowns that year and was a Heisman finalist. So he had a tremendous season. So Burrow, who had already graduated from the Ohio State, the fighting Travis Rockholds, decides, all right, I want to go somewhere where I can contribute, I can play, and I can win a national championship, and I can have a big-time college football experience. Goes to Baton Rouge, eats crawfish and whatever else with Ed Orgeron. They have a big old bowl, and the next thing you know, Joe Football arrives in Baton Rouge. Well, I felt like he had a really interesting opportunity there. So I go down to Baton Rouge, and I sit down with Joe. I do this whole feature with Joe. I interview Coach Orgeron. I interview Joe about what football means to that guy. And during the interview, I actually asked him verbatim, what is football to Joe Burrow? Because his father, Jimmy, was a coach forever at Ohio University. That's why Joe grew up in Athens, Ohio. And he said back to me, football is Joe Burrow. And from that moment on, I've called him Joe Football. He's been Joey Football ever since. And to see the evolution in him from what a lot of people consider to be a game manager in his first year at LSU to, in that second year at LSU, rewriting the entire NCAA record book with all of those dudes like Justin Jefferson on one side, Jamar Chase on the other side, Clyde Edwards-Helaire behind him, Thaddeus Moss at tight end. They just had an embarrassment of riches offensively. And Joe was the perfect dude. And I could see it. I could see the way that he got those guys. Like he has such a self-confidence in his personality. Joe's a different cat, man. Like he loves quasars and space and NASA and black holes and Milky Ways and constellations and all this stuff. That's what fascinates and intrigues Joe Burrow. And he loves SpongeBob SquarePants. And he wears weird T-shirts. And all of those, but when there's that self-confidence in that, other people are drawn to that. When you are self-confident in who you are, being exactly who you are, people are drawn to that in such a magnetic way. And I could see it so quickly how those LSU dudes were drawn to Joe. And then when you're drawn to somebody because of that and then they produce on the football field the way that Joe did, Joe, I'll never forget seeing him get hit by Anthony Jennings. LSU was playing Alabama at home in the fall of 2018, and Anthony Jennings, an Alabama linebacker, came off the edge, and I thought he killed Joe Burrow. He hit Joe so hard, I was standing on the sideline, and it sounded like a train wreck. And Joe got up and shook it off, and you could see how that bunch was like, this guy is tough as woodpecker lips. This guy is no bullshit. This guy is a leader. We're following him anywhere. And now the whole world is noticing these things because he's doing it on the grandest stage and producing at an unbelievable level. and he's got the shades, and he's got the chains, and he's got the thing, and you can do all that when you're that guy.
He's
that dude.
I've always thought it was interesting to go from being a leader in a locker room of college athletes and how difficult that can be to translate to the NFL. And I think what you said about, taking that hit, the tweet that I mentioned, from the UCF game, a lot of those things, doesn't matter what kind of rah-rah leader you are in college, can you take that hit? Can you perform? Can you execute? Those are the best leaders in the NFL, and that's what Joe Burrow is, and he has all the swag to go with it too. Someone asked him about the diamonds in his chain last night, if they were real or fake. He said, I make too much money for these to be fake. So he can talk it, he can back it up, and he's cool, man. He is the personification of cool.
And the reason he's the personification of cool is because he is exactly who he is, and he's not faking it. Like he oozes authenticity. And that is so rare today. And not only does he ooze that authenticity that's so rare, he wins. Like he's one of these guys, it's just the rarest personality. He has the rarest personality. And I remember there's a great story from his LSU days where he got so JT Barrett, with whom he played at Ohio State, and Stephen Collier, with whom he played. He was in the same quarterback room with these guys at Ohio State. They came to see Joe play at LSU. They're staying in Joe's apartment. It's the middle of the night. I mean, it's 2, 3 in the morning. And Joe Burrow, JT Barrett is passed out asleep. All right, him and Stephen are passed out. And Burrow comes and rustles them awake. And they're like, they wake up. They're like, what's wrong? What time is it? What's going on? Is everything okay? You all right? And Joe Burrow's like, yeah, hey, I wanted to show you guys this T-shirt I got. Look how awesome this T-shirt is. The T-shirt is a cat surfing on a slice of pizza. And that's why he woke them up. He woke them up to share this T-shirt with them in the middle of the night before a huge football game. Hey, fellas, look at this T-shirt I got. It's a cat surfing on a slice of pizza. That's Joe Burrow. I'm also thrilled for Matthew Stafford because this is a guy who's been criticized. Yeah, he's got huge numbers, but he's never won anything. Whatever.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
He's a phenomenal talent and went to an organization that was building to win now. And here they are on the precipice of it. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. I mean, the Rams have a home game. It's a home football game.
It'll actually, yeah. I mean, you know how corporate the Super Bowl can be. And look, it didn't really
They don't have to travel, dude.
Yeah, I get that. But, like, even with Tampa, the Tampa fans, if they can get the tickets, it'll be less attended, I feel like, than Tampa fans were last year at Raymond James because, that's the knock on the Rams fan base. They don't really have much traction yet in L.A. You saw how many 49ers fans there were. I wonder how much of a presence they'll have. I doubt they'll have any kind of, like, home field advantage, don't you?
Well, America will probably be cheering for Cincinnati.
Oh, no doubt.
Because of the whole story. I mean, the everybody loves a worst to first story. Everybody's drawn and enamored with Burrow. So, I mean, if that dude wins the Super Bowl, man, I mean, they're going to put a statue of him up at the stadium tomorrow. It's wild, man. All right. Another thing that I wanted to discuss this week is when I am driving my daughter to Carpool, she has the most amazing questions. My 9-year-old Vivian asks me questions all the time. And, Wes, I want you to address – we're going to start Vivian's Carpool question of the week.
Okay.
And this week, Vivian's Carpool question of the week is this. Daddy, why aren't limos painted like school buses? Because that's really all they are anyway, is they move a whole bunch of people. So, Wes, what is your answer to Vivian? Why aren't limos painted like school buses?
I will answer Vivian's question with the question. Why aren't school buses painted like limos? And why don't we have more fun in the school bus? Why don't we have more music? Why don't we have that crazy LED lighting that goes around
Strobe
the
lights?
top and changes colors?
Popping bottles on the school bus?
I think that is what really needs to be addressed here. A big school bus needs to figure out it can't be that difficult to enhance the ride a little bit instead of sitting on those fake leather chairs that your legs get stuck to.
Leather.
It's tough. And I haven't been inside of a school bus, thankfully, in a long time. But that's how I would answer Vivian's question. I think we need to take it up the chain and ask the Bluebird company, which is based in Georgia, what they can do to enhance our transportation.
One of the traumatic memories that I have as a kid, we had to watch this school bus safety video when I was a kid. And it was all about like getting ran over by the school bus and how how the stop sign pops out on the school bus, and the stop sign popped out.
It's like a bayonet.
And somebody blew right through it, and you could get plowed, so beware. And somebody popped some pill on the back of the school bus and puked on the bus, and it was terrifying. And I still remember it vividly, and how I'm looking around at Bones like, what in the hell are we watching? But it's seared right there. I don't remember a whole lot. I swear, I think our brain only has unless you're Ryan McGee, our brain only has so much you can hold. And I don't remember so much about my youth, but I remember the terrifying school bus video with the kid puking after he took the pill.
Then it did its job.
Damn right
That's what it's supposed to do. Those school safety videos, the production quality is never quite what you want. But I think that's part of the effect of just scaring the living daylights out of you.
All right, so we've gotten nowhere with answering Vivi's question. When she asked me why limos aren't painted like school buses, I said to her, school buses have to be really obnoxious so that people can see them coming. Limos want to be really discreet. You want to be discreet and cool, and they got the windows tinted and blacked out so you can't see who's in there, whether it's a real bad prom party or it's Tom Cruise. Everybody wonders who's in the limo. In the school bus, you got Johnny hanging out of it, waving at people in the carpool line. So that was my answer to Viv.
Is there a class? Is there a class difference between the school bus kids in the carpool line? Do the carpool kids kind of look down their noses at the school bus riders?
Well, Vivi wants to ride the bus. Yeah. She is upset that she can't ride the bus. My kids go to a charter school, and they don't have a bus. There was, before the pandemic, a charter service that these people owned all these buses, and they dropped kids off at the charter schools in the area. And our kids rode it. They loved it. And it was great for Lainey and me because we didn't have to drive all the way. I mean, our kids' school's 25 minutes away each way.
Yeah, you don't want to be in a bus that long.
And so now, I mean, the companies know more after the pandemic. So we go to the carpool every day, which I actually appreciate, man. Some of my favorite conversations I have with my daughters on the way to school. I get to learn about their lives. I get to learn about what they're thinking about. I'll simply ask, what are you thinking about right now? Because they'll be just quiet looking out the window. And I get to learn so much about them. And I love that. And as a parent, that is gold, man. Because you wait, Wes, when your kids get a little older, you're going to want to know what they're thinking. And they just don't talk.
Yeah.
They do their thing.
Everything she's thinking now. Everything she's doing. Every place she wants to go.
That's a great thing,
Every
man.
bodily function that needs to be addressed.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm taking advantage of that. But what have you learned from Vivian recently? What's the big development on on America's youth? What's happening?
Well, I learned all about her rainbow doll today. She has this doll called a rainbow doll, and it has this really bouffant, old school Dolly Parton hair that's several shades of blue, and these really big, you know how the cartoons have the big eyes, like the big look at me eyes?
Sure.
This doll has those too. And so she broke down the whole thing. She took the doll to school. She was going to show it to her friends. I asked her if that was against the school rules. Probably. I said, don't let them take your doll home. They're going to ask you to take it home. Tell them your dad said no. Because I don't need the drama of her not having it's a federal law that school bus. Oh, Travis reports in. It's a federal law that school buses must be painted school bus yellow. There's your answer.
Federal. So this
federal
is
law.
above,
Why is it a federal law, I wonder?
This is above Bluebird.
I wonder why they have to be. It has to be so they can like be gaudy and obnoxious, and you can see them coming, and you know exactly what they are when you see them. One of the coolest things I've ever seen was, now Laney's reporting in, telling me it's called a rainbow high doll, not a rainbow doll. Either way. Thank you, honey. I appreciate that. She's in another room on another level of my home, and I must be talking very loudly. But anyway, one of the coolest things one thing I love is going to NASCAR races and seeing how these hillbillies outfit their school buses. They'll go buy these old school buses.
Yeah.
And there's one that goes to Michigan Speedway every year, and he painted it like Dale Earnhardt's black number 3 Chevrolet.
Yeah,
it's an old school Bluebird. It is black with a big 3 on it, and it has kind of the matte gray undercarriage area.
Oh, yeah.
And
right above the wheels.
I love that bus.
Yep.
Has the Goodwrench labeling on it. I love that. So send us pictures of how you've outfitted your school bus.
Or the
at Marty Smith ESPN. Send it to at Outsider. When you listen to this, send us your pictures of how you've outfitted your school bus. At Outsider on Twitter, at Outsider IG on Instagram. All right, one more article on Outsider that really caught my eye was some dude did a $20 parlay and won $579,000.
All right, what do you wager on?
The last part of the wager was the NFC Championship game had to be 2017 exactly Rams. 2017 Rams exactly. And that $20 bet turned into a $579,000 payday.
Oh, my word. All right, here's
Do
the
you
deal.
bet? Are you a sports bettor?
No, man. With my reputation only. I mean, I wrote a piece for Dogs HQ about the Georgia players in it and everything. I said that the Rams would win and not cover and take the under. I knew that. Okay, I felt pretty confident about that. Totally got the Chiefs thing wrong. Joe Burrow ruined it, but it was fine. I only wager my reputation though. I know it's just a craze in our culture right now and in society, but I'm a married man that is not in charge of my own finances, so that's why. And I'm probably better off for it. But if you're making a $20, this is the way I think about it though. When I see stories like this, that guy is not just gambling for the first time, saying I'm going to do a $20 parlay. I wonder what that guy's ledger is. You know what I mean? Obviously he hit it big. 500K is huge. But how many other things has he lost on? And is he just going to hang it up now? Probably not. So
I know this. I feel like my whole concept on betting is I work really hard for my money. I put in a lot of time to earn what I get. And so the concept of betting it and having it makes the game more interesting. I'm doing Super Bowl squares for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'll probably have hundreds of dollars involved in Super Bowl squares. But the only time I will ever bet on sports is if I'm in Las Vegas. And I'm just in the sports book. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm there for. I'm not going to do it otherwise. I like my money too much, man.
Yeah.
I don't even do fantasy football. Do you?
I do, yeah, but I've had to like scale back. I used to do like 3 leagues.
What's the loser get? What's the loser have to do?
Our league commissioner listens to this show, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell him he needs to up his game on that punishment. And I'm all in. If I lose, fine, I'll do it. But we don't have anything good like that. One of my buddies had the 2 weeks in a row, Waffle House getting the shout out. My buddy had the Waffle House punishment where you sit in the Waffle House. He lost his league, has to sit in there for like 12 hours, and every waffle, or 24 hours, and every waffle he eats, you take an hour off. And kid went viral for this last year, I think, and he just detailed every horrible thought he had and how terrible he felt. But I think that's
How many could you get down?
In a 24-hour span, it's probably not as many as I think. Because those, it's already pretty massive, and then it just expands in your gut, right?
Expands in your, yeah.
I don't know. I think in a 24-hour span, I'd probably go. I'd put my over/under at 8.5.
8.5 Waffle House waffles
In 24 hours, I would probably put my over/under.
No chance, dude.
You don't think I could?
No chance. No.
See, that's what I think. That's what I'm saying. It's probably not as many as I think. So
no chance, man. What I would do if I lost that bet, I would probably try to get like $30 or $50 in ones, and I would fill the Waffle House jukebox with money. That's a safe bet. There's great ROI. Mm-hmm. There's great return on investment with a jukebox. You put your money in, you're getting something back that you know is going to fill you with joy and fulfillment. Or if you're in a mood for a sad country song, the emotion that you're after is what you're going to get back. That's a good investment in my opinion. I would fill the Waffle House jukebox with money. I would take a sleeping bag, and I would do my very best to take a few hour nap anyway in the almost call it a stall in the booth.
It's like a feeding trough.
Yes.
In the booth. Okay.
And then maybe when I wake up I'm hungry, so that gives me an hour. I mean, then I can maybe go back to sleep again because my belly's full.
Are you even gonna try You eat a pretty restrictive diet. They don't have salmon and broccolis at the Waffle House, so
I'd sneak a flask in there, I bet.
Oh yeah, I mean, you don't have to lose fantasy football to do that. The jukebox owners of America are the ones who really have the music industry figured out. I mean, we've gone through iTunes, CDs, vinyls, Spotify. They're the ones that are still making money, I have to believe, hand over fist.
I was at the University of Michigan ahead of the Orange Bowl, and they have the coolest jukebox in the equipment room. It's a University of Michigan jukebox that's old school. I mean, like, it has old school Michigan logos on it, and it is badass. I think they either just found it or just got it, just put it in there. It was super cool. Speaking of super cool, I had an awesome conversation recently with a guy that I admire a ton. Travis did a great job getting him because his schedule is packed. He is inspiring people all over the country, the world, with his story. Inky Johnson grew up in Atlanta.
Kirkwood.
Rough neighborhood. Yep, rough neighborhood. A place that he says is not easy to get out. And he was always solely focused, laser focused on using football as a way to go make a better life. And he worked, and he was passionate, and he was diligent, and he was unwavering in doing that. So he has a great high school career, gets a scholarship to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and starts to play. I mean, he plays right away. And by the time he was entering his junior season, there are people saying to him, hey, you go hoop here. You go play really well here, man. You got an opportunity to be a first-round draft pick, and you can change everybody's life. Well, the second game of the season, Tennessee was playing Air Force. And late in the game, a pass out to the sideline to one of the wide receivers, and Inky comes over and lays the wood to this dude and falls limp on the football field after that hit. He could not feel his arm, and ultimately he lost the use of that arm. His football career ended right there. So now what? When you have everything you ever dreamed of right there before you, everything for which you've worked tirelessly is right here, and then it's gone, how do you react? The way Inky Johnson has reacted has changed millions of lives, more lives than he ever would have changed as a player, but in a very different way. I can't wait for you guys to hear this man's passion, his perspective. He is one of one, and I'm so grateful that he took time. Here is Inky Johnson, former Tennessee Vol, current motivational speaker on the Marty Smith Podcast. First of all, Inky, thank you so much for your time, man. I love your spirit. I know anyone that has ever seen any words that have come out of your mouth are tremendously moved. And before we came on, I shared your path with our audience. So I want to start with the moment that you woke up. All right, it's Air Force. It's 2 minutes to go. There's the sideline collision, and your life changes right there. Life-changing surgery, life-saving surgery, your life's altered. All right. What is the first thing you recall the second that you woke up from blacking out?
I just recall people just being around me, teammates, and they were just telling me to get up, Ink, let's go, get up, let's go. And I remember this sensation, this shocking sensation going from my head to my toes, and I couldn't feel anything. It was one of the scariest moments of my life, because that was the first time I ever encountered something to the extent to where I couldn't feel anything. It was just a shocking sensation going from my head to my toes. And, it was a pretty frightening moment. But I remember my guys just saying, Ink, get up, let's roll, let's go. And I was like, I can't. And to them, that was like, what do you mean you can't? You always get up, man. Like, come on, get up. And I was like, I can't. And that was the first time I felt as if, I didn't have any control over my body and, my physical strength.
And you use that dogged determination to get out of the neighborhood, to get out of the environment in which you grew up. And I want to get into that in a few moments. But first, when you're a guy who's indomitable, when you're a guy who people said you can't and you constantly did, what is helplessness? Like, what is that moment of helplessness?
Yeah, it's I think that the most fearful part was, I've always felt as if I had a certain extent of control, whether it was, I always speak about, Marty, controlling what you can control, whether it be work ethic, dedication, commitment, attitude, perspective, right? What you bring into an environment, control what you can control. And so when you speak to helplessness, that was the first time I felt as if I had lost a certain sense of control. And so I don't know even if the fear was the moment and what had happened, or on the opposite side of the spectrum, I had lost a certain feeling of control. And that was fearful because as people, we want to control certain areas and aspects of our life. And I love and I subscribe to the train of thought of controlling what you can control. And so I had never been to a certain point in my life to where I felt as if I was so helpless that I had no control, right? Both over my body and the physical, but also I felt as if I had no control over the moment and I couldn't do what I was used to doing. And so for me, that was a bit fearful and frightening because I felt as if I had lost a certain extent of control.
I had seen you speak so many times, but as I started to prepare for our conversation, I watched that speech about the controllables, and I just had to smile, bro, because one of the things I do quite a bit of public speaking too, and a lot of that is based around a book I wrote a couple years ago called Never Settle. And in that book, I say those very words. I say, look, the vast majority that we face on a daily basis is out of our control. They are uncontrollables, but every day we control kindness, we control effort, and we control passion. Those are the ones that I choose to use, and I've seen your words there. I've seen how impactful those words are. I do wonder, though, when you're in that moment of uncertainty, not just in the absolute immediate aftermath, but as you start to progress into what is a new normal, how does that impact your self-worth?
Yeah, it injured it for sure. It injured my self-worth for sure, right? Because like you speak to, Marty, like, a lot of people speak about the injury, right? The injury itself. I got injured, brachial plexus avulsion, paralyzed right arm and hand. But my self-worth got injured. My belief got injured. My faith got injured. My character even got injured, right? Because I subscribe to the train of thought. Character is not something we inherit. Character is something we have to wake up every single day. We have to fight and we have to build it. And to a certain extent, I looked at fighting as something in the physical, not physically fighting someone, but fighting for what I wanted to possess, my goals, my dreams, my aspirations, fighting for turning myself into the person that I felt I was destined to become. And so when this injury happened, a lot of other things got injured as well that I had to pick up the pieces to and try to figure it out, right? My character, my mindset, right? My faith, my belief, my self-worth. Like it all got injured and fractured because at one point, just being honest with you, I was this athlete and my identity to a certain extent was tied up into being an athlete. And so when you no longer have that, you have to try to pick up the pieces and find a new identity, find your self-worth, find your character, and things of that nature.
Man, that is so true. A couple years ago, several years ago now, for ESPN, I wrote a column called Athletes Die Twice. And it's because of that identity. When you have, from your very small youth, had this laser-focused path towards what your dream is, and then that's gone. I don't care if it's high school football when it's over for you, that last game your senior year, or you're Peyton Manning or Tom Brady and play till you're 106. Dude, you lose a very substantial piece of your self-worth and your identity when that's gone, and you have to completely recreate yourself, and that is hard for a lot of folks.
Absolutely.
What? Now, I know your injury was part of this, but what was that moment when that identity shifted for you, when you said, okay, I have self-worth in another avenue. I can find that joy.
Yeah, I think you're so right, man, and you're nailing it. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of look at life the way that I do, Marty, and I value people, right? Because in my moment to where I was in a situation to where I was helpless, I felt as if I had lost everything I had worked for from the time I was 7 until I was 20 years old. In my moment of what I thought to be defeat, tragedy, opposition, adversity, it was the people around me, right, that got my mindset back in order. It was the people around me that helped me realize, like, hey, man, it's not over. One bad chapter doesn't define the book. It was people around me that said, hey, Ink, this is just a bump in the road, man. Use it, right? Figure it out. Use it. And so it was during my rehab process, I would say, to where I was in a situation in the brachial plexus avulsion. As you would know, it's not like an ACL. It's not like an MCL. It's one of these injuries to where nobody can give you an absolute answer. Nobody can say, hey, in 3 months, you'll have this back. In 6 months, you should have this back. It's one of these processes to where you just have to show up, and we're going to see what happens. Just show up and keep coming, and we'll see if you get feeling back. We'll see if you get movement back. And so along that process, I had people around me, mother, coaches, teammates, just pouring into me. Ink, it's all good. And they helped me realize that, man, this was just a bump in the road. This was something that I could use to be a blessing to other people and add value to every environment I went into and every person's life that I came in contact with. And so people helped me realize it.
Was there bitterness that exact emotion was their bitterness.
It wasn't. And I tell people all the time, I think, Marty, if I didn't go at the last play the way that I did, I think it would have been a bit of bitterness, right? If I would have looked back at the game and felt as if, hey, man, you didn't give everything you had to it, and this would have happened, I would have been bitter. My attitude would have been totally different because I would have lived with the constant thought of, hey, man, what if I would have gave everything I had to it? And so on the play that I got injured September 9th, 2006, Air Force, great program, great group of guys. But on that play, when it happened, I knew I gave not only my teammates everything I had, I knew I gave the game that I felt privileged to play everything I had. And so I always tell people, man, when you give everything you got to something, you can walk away with your head held high and you can walk away with your character and your integrity intact, regardless of which way the wind blows and how it sways. And so it wasn't bitterness. And I think the reason it wasn't is because my last play, I knew I gave not only the game, but my teammates and the people that put me in that position, everything I had.
Such a rare quality, man. I don't know if I would have the self-confidence within myself to take that approach and to be full of grace and full of gratitude and all of the things that you project on a daily basis. I'm not sure I wouldn't just be a walking pity party puddle. And that's it's very admirable the way that you've redefined yourself and used hurt as fuel. And for so many millions of people, you know, do you still watch ball? You
Absolutely.
Still watch a lot of ball?
Absolutely, all the time. All the time.
Okay. So when you see Buda Baker, for example, all right, a couple weeks back here, he has a collision with Cam Akers, and he's laying there and can't move. How do you watch that?
Man, I saw it. I was watching it when it happened, and you know, I don't like to see anybody get injured, you know, and just being honest with you, Marty, like after my injury happened, it was hard. One of the hardest things for me was to watch the game. Like that was hard for me. It took me a while to even go back to a game at Tennessee, even though I was physically in Tennessee and rehabbing and things of that nature. It was a process to getting back to the point to where I could physically go out and watch a game, right? For a number of reasons. One of the toughest things for me, I tell guys all the time, the toughest part wasn't my injury. The toughest part was when I would go watch a practice or watch a game and I would see guys just take it for granted and didn't appreciate it. That was tough for me. And so even when we talk about the injury aspect, I don't like seeing anybody get injured, you know, to no extent, right? Because I just want guys to play the game. I want guys to give everything they got to it. Now, you're going to have your nicks and your bruises. But when I saw that happen between Cam and Buda, I was like, man, that's tough. And that look, right, of just laying there helpless, right? I know that feeling. I know that look. You know, I'm all too familiar with it. And, man, to be honest, I just prayed for him, man, and wish that everything turned out well for him.
As we were saying off the top there, you know, you grew up in Atlanta, really tough environment, and you've been open about the difficulty of that environment and emerging from it. What makes that type of environment so difficult for many young men to emerge, Inky?
Absolutely. I think one of the great challenges of those type of environments is, like, for example, I was growing up, 2-bedroom home, 14 people. Mother had me at 16 years old, and very few people in my family graduated high school. Great people, just chose different things, different decisions and choices led them down different paths. And I would have these dreams, goals, and aspirations, Marty, to do all these incredible things. I remember when I first said I wanted to go to the NFL, and me and my cousins, we used to sleep on the floor on pallets. And I remember I said, man, I want to make it to the NFL. And I said to my cousins, I was like, man, maybe we can get our own beds one day, right? I'll make it. I can get us our own beds, right? Maybe I can give grandma a better living condition. I could pull my mother off the double shift at Wendy's. And everybody kind of listened to me. And they was like, yeah, ain't that sounds cool? But the reality of that is we're not even playing organized sports, right? People in our family haven't even graduated high school. So it sounds cool. And so the challenge is always, you got the goal, the dream, and the aspiration, and you go out and you do great in sports, or you go out and you chase the dream, the goal, and the aspiration, but you come back to an environment that doesn't reflect anything that you want. And so if you don't have people constantly pouring into you and constantly cultivating that belief and those goals and those dreams and those aspirations, it can get tough. And so that's why I always say I'm grateful for the people that got placed in my life, the coaches, the teachers, my parents, people that constantly poured into me and said, hey, man, you're worth it. You can do it, right? Your situation and circumstances doesn't reflect, what you want out of life. And so because of those people, I felt as if I was able to accomplish some of those things and become the first one in my family to go to college and graduate.
So I'm a dad, bro. All right, I got 3 of them. I got a 16-year-old son who knows everything. He knows it all, right? I got a couple little girls that I'm trying as hard as I can to make sure they know every single day that nobody's ever going to love them more than their daddy is, okay?
Yes,
but I'm also a little bit of a hard ass to show, like, y'all got it all. You got it made. You got everything you could ever dream of having, and you are not going to forsake that, and you're going to bow your head and say thank you for that. Now, here's where I'm going with this. As a guy who grew up like you just explained, how do you react to some of the ways that young people don't have that perspective of it's all right here for you?
Absolutely. I remember telling my cousin when I got to a certain age and I had gotten some exposure just in terms of life. I had this coach, man, this amazing guy when I was a kid, and just being frank, Marty, we were growing up, man, inner city Atlanta, southeast corner, all black neighborhood, you name it, we had it. Drugs, gangs, violence, we had it, right? And this guy just driving down the street one day, first white man I ever met. He was pulling up, taking a kid home from practice, and he saw us in the street playing ball. Struck up a conversation with us, asked me to go get my parents and my guardian. My mom was at work. I go to get my uncle. And make a long story short, he ended up signing us up to play ball, organized sports, me and my cousins. And my family, me and my cousins that he signed up in the street that day, all of us ended up going to college and playing ball and graduating. He changed our life, right? He was an entrepreneur, had his own business. Trey Hurst, amazing man, amazing leader. And he wasn't just paying for me and my cousins. He was paying for kids all across Atlanta, right? Coming from all type of environments. And it was beautiful because I watched him and I got to learn from him. And I'll never forget, man, when he started exposing us to certain things. Like, I'll never forget, he took me and my cousins, he bought us our first steak, right? And we came home that night, I'm talking Jack, like, man, coach just got us a steak, right? And he started teaching us about life. And I'll never forget when I got to a certain age, because when you grow up a certain way, people play on, like, I was an extremely ambitious kid, right? And so I was driven, man. I loved playing ball. And so some of the coaches I had, they weren't bad people, but they kind of played on sometimes in my belief. And so we would go play a private school, for example, Mark, just being honest with you. I came from Atlanta Public. And so we would go play some schools, and a coach may say, hey, man, these kids, they got both parents in the household, right? Y'all being raised by a single mother. Y'all been raised by this, by that. Like, ain't no way they're stronger than you and this and that, right? And so we would get psyched out by it. And then when I got to a certain age, I was like, man, you want 2 parents in the household, right? You want to be raised that way. You want to be able to do for your children, right? You want to be able to provide resources. You want to be able to put them in a better situation. Now, the key is getting them to understand and appreciate it. Like, even with my children, me and my wife are growing up, same household, raising our children, same household. Our lives don't reflect the life that I grew up experiencing. And so making them understand and appreciate, like, hey, man, this is a blessing, appreciate it, right? And putting things in place to try to serve as a constant reminder of what's important and the resources and the things they have access to. It's not just something that you go out and you get. This is a privilege. And so appreciate it. Appreciate the people and appreciate the environments and the things that you have access to, because everybody doesn't have that.
I love it. I tell them all the time, I'm like, listen, and if they make me angry about something that has to do with that, with like luxury items, with privileges, I tell them, y'all are spoiled But then I look right at him and go, that ain't your fault. That's my fault.
Yes, sir. I love it.
But you're going to know it. Like, it's the truth.
Absolutely.
Like, we work really hard to ensure they have a good life, but it's also a responsibility for me as a father and Lainey as their mother. Hey, this is a blessing, and you need to make sure that you're aware of the blessing. Speaking of, so you go from that you just described to this University of Tennessee. All right, we're talking big boy ball. Absolutely. Power 5, SEC. They've just won a national championship, 4 or 5 years ago when you get there. And you got at your disposal anytime you want it. Unlimited food, nutritionists, your own bed, clean clothes, leadership. You got all this stuff, this infrastructure. I imagine that must be shocking.
Yeah.
Is it shocking?
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Marty, I was like, man, like you guys get steak, shrimp, and spaghetti. Like, it's unbelievable. Like somebody come and pick up your jock strap. Somebody bring you a smoothie. Like, it's unbelievable, right? And like, I was like, man, you got the infrastructure, and all you got to do is have the character to do what you say you're going to do. And you get a shot, not just at the NFL, get a shot at the great equalizer in life, your education, right? By doing what you say you're going to do, showing up, working hard. And it was hard for me sometimes, Marty, because like guys didn't appreciate it. Now you had your guys that appreciated it, did what they were supposed to do, handle business, appreciated the resources, appreciated the people. And then you have others on the other side of the spectrum that felt like people were supposed to do that for them, right? And didn't quite get it and appreciate the things that they had access to. And so when I got there, man, I loved it, right? Because coming from Atlanta Public, my weight room in high school, we had like 2 squat racks, a bench, and a leg press machine at the time. And so when I walk up there and we got this indoor, we got this weight room, I'm like, oh, man, I'm about to get busy. Like, I loved it. I loved it, man.
So right before the injury, you guys start the season. You have experts telling you get through this next 10, 12 games, and you're going to be a first-round draft pick in the National Football League.
Yes, sir. So
then you have this life-altering injury. So I would imagine you probably have a very unique perspective on name, image, likeness.
Absolutely.
What's going on in college football right now, where these young men are able to benefit financially from their name, from their image, from their likeness.
Absolutely.
The floor is yours. I want to know what your perspective is here.
Absolutely. I think it presents great opportunity, man. And I'm happy that that the guys get that opportunity because, like you said, especially for guys, sometimes they get injured, prematurely to their career playing out. But also, one of the things I think about often, Marty, is you got the NIL and it's beautiful name, image, likeness. Guys are maximizing. Guys are getting great opportunities from that financially, exposure. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And I just hope that there's a level of financial literacy interconnected to that somehow to where guys can appreciate it, maximize it, but also be able to keep it. And one of the things that I often think about, does it taint the love in it? Does it taint the passion in it? Right? I'm grateful that they got that and they should have that. But oftentimes I think it's almost like when you see guys make it to the league, Marty, and they get paid, right? And it's great because that's why you do it. You work and you want to get to a certain point to where you can secure your family's legacy. And that's great. And then you just see a drop off in their performance. You see a drop off in their dedication, their commitment, and the things that they said they wanted. And so the name, image, and likeness is great. It's beautiful. I just hope it's interconnected to a level of financial literacy so these young men can not only make it, but can keep it. But also, I hope they're mature enough to not allow it to taint their love and their passion for the game and what they're a part of.
Completely agree. I said before NIL became legal, became the process, I had this concept where I thought, okay, there are certain athletes at the collegiate level, and back then I was talking about guys like Deshaun Watson, who you would walk into the Clemson bookstore and there's 4 jerseys hanging everywhere.
Absolutely.
Maybe I had this thought that they can accrue percentages of sales off of those items, but they can only get that when they get their degree. That is opened up when they are handed that piece of paper that incentivizes them to go get the degree.
Absolutely.
And
it's awesome.
But, it's a whole different world now with NIL and with the transfer portal and free agency. I mean, college football is so different than it was when you played, man.
Oh, man, it's totally different. It's totally different. And it's like for everything you gain, you lose something else. And for everything you lose, you gain something else. And so even speaking to the transfer portal, Marty, like you look at it and, oftentimes it benefits a school or program in a great way, or it benefits the athlete, and that's great. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, sometimes it doesn't. But you often think about sometimes those life skills, man, like, toughing it out, right? Battling it out, competing for what you want, and not creating this behavior and this mentality of, if I don't get what I want, I'm leaving, right? Because oftentimes real life doesn't work that way. When you got to go out into the real world and you got to compete. I think one of the greatest challenges for athletes and former athletes is the transition period, right? When they're done, they hang up the cleats, hang up the shoes, put up the bat, whatever the case may be, put up the volleyball, whatever the case may be. And now it's time to transition, right? And now the world, corporate America, whatever the case may be, like the 10 sacks were great, but nobody cares about that now, right? Now you got to compete on a totally different level, and you can't be entitled based upon your past performances. And so learning some of the life skills that you have to take when it's time to transition, and correlating it and carrying it over and putting it and applying it in other areas and aspects in life to make you somewhat of a decent human being. Ball is great, but also looking at it from the opposite end of the spectrum and wondering what's the disadvantage to some of these things when we look at the big picture and when it comes to life.
When you speak to large groups of people, I imagine probably with as much as you do it and as dynamically as you do it, you probably get feedback from people often saying, I needed hope. Like, I need hope, and I didn't have anything to grasp, and you've given me something to grasp. Why do you think it's so difficult for people, some people, to find joy and fulfillment?
I think it's tough because oftentimes, and I'm talking to myself as well, oftentimes, man, we base our joy and our fulfillment upon external things, right? Whether it be a goal or a dream or aspiration, whether it be something materialistic and superficial. And I think one of the things that my injury has helped me realize and understand is that my joy and my fulfillment is an inside job. I always tell young guys, man, you got to learn to work from the inside out, right? You got to build it from the inside out. Some of those things are great. There's no problem with working to acquire certain things. It's great, man. You work hard, you're dedicated, and you're committed, and you should acquire some of these things. But don't base your happiness, your joy, and your fulfillment off of that. Like I tell athletes all the time, I was talking to an athlete in the league earlier this year in the NFL, and he was saying that, man, like, I'm not producing the way I was producing the prior 2 years. I'm not getting some of the things done that I was trying to get done. And we're talking and we're poking around. And then he finally got to the point to where he said, like, my contract year's coming up. And I was like, that's it. I was like, you placing too much emphasis on it. That's why you're not producing. I'm like, man, just play your game. Do what you do. I said, hey, man, if your happiness is predicated upon the contract and money, money is a number. Numbers never end. And so if your happiness is predicated upon it, like, you're down a long road searching for your happiness. And so I think when we base it upon external factors, sometimes it can get more challenging than it should be when it comes to our joy and our fulfillment. But I think we've all been a prisoner of it at one point or another.
I'm sure you've heard the adage, comparison is the thief of joy.
Absolutely. It's so true.
And I want to ask you about social media. Obviously, you have a monster following, 300, almost 400,000 Instagram followers, et cetera, right? You got a great following.
Thank you.
What role do you think social media plays in our overall mental health?
Man, I think it's right up there with the things that I feel negatively affect our mental health. Because oftentimes it's like people don't don't realize or think about. I wouldn't say they don't realize it, because I think they realize it when they step back. But I don't think they think about, when we look at social media, it's all about highlight reels, right? And sometimes we show the down moments, the moment of opposition, the moment of adversity, but oftentimes it's a highlight reel of things that happen great or things that are going good. And I think if things are not going so well for us in our personal life at the time or professional life at the time, and this person's life look amazing, people often compare their lives to others, right? And you always tell people, like, man, you walk your own journey. Like, my grandmother told me something at a very young age, Marty, and it stuck with me until this day, and I'm so grateful for it. I remember when I was a kid, and I used to sit on the porch with her, and you know how you watch cars when you're a kid, right? And we used to car watch. Man, I want that car, right? Man, I want to get that car. And she would just sit there and watch us and laugh. And I'll never forget, one day me and my cousin got into an argument about a car driving by. I want that car. No, that's my car. We're about to get in a fist fight about a car that just rolled by. And our grandmother calmed us down. And I'll never forget her saying to us, hey, in life, never wish for what somebody got, because you don't know what they did to get it, and you don't know what they're doing to keep it. Appreciate what you have. Appreciate what you've been blessed with, right? And learn how to be happy for other people without any motive. And that's work, right? Because it sounds good and we can say it and it's cool. But when we all go through rough patches in life, we look at certain things, we look at certain people, we look on social media, and I think is one of the number one contributors to, negatively affecting our mental health. And I think on the bright side of it, man, it's a lot of people on social media that's doing a lot of great work. And so I think if we focus more on, some of those positive things that's on social media, instead of basing our self-worth off of social media, I think our mental health will be in a little better shape.
Preach, man. That was awesome, and it's so true. I kind of have this philosophy that insecurity and conceitedness walk hand in hand, and self-confidence and selflessness walk hand in hand. Because to your point, when you're full of joy and you're fulfilled as a human being inside, then you're willing to be happy for other people's successes.
Absolutely.
And it's such a powerful energy when people carry themselves that way. Couple more. I know I've kept you forever here, brother.
Good. I'm enjoying this, man. You're good.
How do you hope you're impacting other people with your story?
Man, Marty, when I speak, I never say that, man, I changed this person's life, right? Or I changed that person's life, because I feel as if in my profession, whether it be personal development, inspirational, motivational speaking, professional speaking, whatever the case may be, I can't take credit for someone's transformation. And so I never say, man, I changed that person's life. But my hope is that I could serve as a source of encouragement and inspiration, to where if I said something or I did something, it sparked a thought, it sparked action to make people get up and do certain things, whether it be a random act of kindness, right? Whether it be doing something to get in better shape, whether it be doing something to, go out and make the world a better place, whatever the case may be. I just try to sow my seeds, right? Every single day I try to sow my seeds. And like the good book says, some is going to fall on good ground. Some are going to get choked out between the thorns and the thistles. Some are going to fall on bad ground. I just try to sow my seeds every single day with the hope that something I say, something I do can serve as a source of encouragement that can spark action in somebody's life in a positive way.
When a man's life's work is inspiring other people, what inspires him? Absolutely.
My family, man, and just people. It's humbling, Marty, and I think sometimes people often be like, man, I'm sure you hear this all the time. Like, I was speaking last week, and I was in Grapevine, Texas, and I was going out to the car to go to the airport, and a lady came up to me, man, and I had just got done presenting, and she was crying, and she was like, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but you just really impacted me. I really need to hear that. And I was like, no, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And for me, it's so humbling, Marty, because I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing. I never imagined it. And I always tell people, man, if I thought I would be doing what I'm doing, it probably would have landed different. right? If I thought one day, man, I'll speak, I'll go out and impact people's life, it probably would have landed different. But I never saw this. This was never part of the plan for my life. I never thought I would be in speak. They put me in public speaking at Tennessee. I dropped the class on the second day, right? Like I was fearful. I was
Yep.
scared out of my mind. And so, like, the people inspire me, man. The notes on social media, the people that come out and greet me in public when I'm with my wife and my children and my family, just supporting what I do, is something that inspires me, man, and it keeps me going for sure.
Who's going to do the movie?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It would be cool,
It's
man.
got to be coming.
Yeah, it would be cool, man. And I've talked to some people that sparked interest, and so, I talked to some people and we'll see where it goes. But I'm just trying to do my work, man, and continue to fight the good fight and press forward.
Well, you're doing an amazing job, man. I know, again, just like that lady said to you in Grapevine, Texas, I know you hear it all the time, but hope is so important right now. People need that energy. They need to be plugged in to positive energy. They need to be plugged in to proper perspective because we are so skewed in so many ways. And I am grateful for your perspective. I'm grateful for your testimony. And, man, your spirit it's a tsunami, and it's awesome. I live my life in a way that I try very hard to let kindness be a light, to let kindness be a compass, to let it guide and direct every decision that I make. I don't always succeed, certainly not, but I want to. I live my life in a way that I want effort to be indomitable. I want to know in my heart that I gave every last ounce of myself to whatever it is I was trying to accomplish. And I live my life in a way that passion directs my energy. I want to know that when I look in the mirror, that I was never outworked and that I was never outpassioned. I control them. And so to hear Inky share that that's also his philosophy was very, very meaningful to me. I appreciate him, man. I appreciate somebody who stares down obstacles and stares down unforeseen strife in a way that is indisputable, and you repurpose that as fuel. That is so inspiring to me. He's a light in the world.
I see regularly, different college programs retweet, put on their social media, whatever, that Inky was there. And, his schedule is jam-packed. And to me, that shows just how different of a dude he is because, to do that, I'm not a motivational speaker, but I have to imagine that even, like I look at like stand-up comedians, you're standing up, you're putting your energy into talking to people. Even they have shows where they don't have the best energy, they don't have the best output. But for his whole reputation, his whole career, his whole life to be tied to what he does, he has to bring it every time. And that is the most impressive thing to me is his consistency, not just the way he approaches life and motivates people and does what he does, but that he can do it time and time again. And that was really cool to hear.
It's a tremendous blessing to have the platform to do that. And that's so this is my book. It's called Never Settle. I never dreamed that this thing would give me a platform to have the opportunity to impact people's lives in a much deeper way. And it is the ultimate endorsement when you are opening yourself up with a vulnerability that could tear your soul out if someone were to receive it in a way other than the way that you hope they do. Vulnerability is a scary thing, but it's also one of the most powerful things. And Inky's vulnerability is so inspiring to so many people. And I'm going to do a speech on Saturday night to the school my kids go to. They asked me to come be a keynote speaker there. I'll report back next week on how that goes.
Yep, can't wait.
But I can tell you, when you speak to these assemblages, whether it's the folks at Pit Boss, who I just spoke to about a month ago now, I guess, whether it's fraternity groups, business schools, sororities, all these different, of corporate America, certainly. When you're speaking to people who don't know what they're getting and you're able to reach in there and take them with you, that is a blessing. And Inky's one of the best in the world at it. So I appreciate him taking the time. To your point, Wes, his schedule is slammed. And Travis, great job getting
good job,
him.
Travis.
We appreciate you guys hanging out. This is the Marty Smith Podcast at Outsider. Thank you so much to our law enforcement officials keeping our community safe, fire and rescue folks. I still have a hilarious story to tell about them. Remind me next week. And thank you so much to the United States military. We are free. Thank God. God bless America. Y'all be good.